All right, let's dive into this, shall we? Design thinking in education. You all wanted to explore Lindsay Portnoy's Design to Learn, and
The good one.
oh, it really is. It's gotten me thinking differently about learning, that's for sure.
Yeah, Portnoy really lays out this compelling argument, doesn't she? Moving beyond, just memorizing facts and all those tests.
Totally. And she starts by painting a picture of how the job market's changing, right? Those traditional skills we used to think were important, they aren't as crucial anymore.
Not at all. Things like, creativity, problem solving, collaboration, those are the skills that are in high demand now.
Right. And it makes you think, are we really preparing students for this new world? I mean, think about it. How often are you actually using those rote skills you learned way back when versus your ability to think outside the box or really solve a tricky problem?
That's a good point. It happens all the time, doesn't it? So the question becomes, how do we get students ready for that?
Yeah.
And Portnoy argues that design thinking, that's how you equip them with the skills they need, not just for specific jobs, but for navigating a future we can't predict.
Okay, so how do we actually bring design thinking into the classroom? What does that even look like?
Well, she breaks it down into 5 elements.
Five.
Yep. Understand and empathize, identify and research, communicate to ideate, prototype and test, and then iterate and reflect.
Okay, I'll admit, when I hear design thinking, I kind of picture, I don't know, brainstorming with sticky notes, maybe some high-tech gadgets. This sounds a lot more structured.
It's definitely more than just brainstorming, yeah. These 5 elements, they provide a framework, right, for tackling real-world problems. That's how you develop those in-demand skills we were talking about.
Okay, I'm following you. But let's break it down even further, yeah? Say I'm a student and I'm totally new to this whole design thinking thing. How would this actually work in a classroom? Can you give me an example?
Sure, let's imagine you're in a history class learning about, I don't know, ancient civilizations.
Okay, I can picture that.
Instead of just reading from textbooks and taking tests, your teacher throws out this challenge, right? To design a city based on what you've learned.
Oh, that's way more interesting than textbook.
Right. So now we're talking. And this is where understand and empathize comes in. You'd be researching, the daily lives of these civilizations, their values, the challenges they faced. You might consider, what? The geography, their resources, really trying to put yourself in their shoes.
Wow, to see the world through their eyes. That's a powerful way to connect with history.
It is. And then you move into identify and research. You'd pinpoint specific needs and problems. What were their concerns about food, shelter, defense? What innovations did they come up with? This is where you'd really dig deep into your research.
So you're building a strong foundation of knowledge, but it's driven by a real problem, not just facts in a vacuum.
Precisely. And then you've empathized, you've researched, now it's time for.
The sticky note.
You got it. Communicate to ideate. Brainstorming solutions with your classmates, sketching out city layouts, discussing possible innovations, really letting those creative juices flow.
Okay, now it's starting to feel like that design process I was thinking about. Thinking outside the box, coming up with new ideas. But how do we go from just brainstorming to creating something?
That's where the next stage comes in. Prototype and test. You might build a model of your city, right? Using simple materials. You might even role play to see how your city would function.
Ah, so you're not just imagining solutions, you're testing them out, seeing what works, what doesn't.
Yeah. And that leads to the final element. Iterate and reflect. You take what you learned from that prototype, what worked, what didn't, and you make improvements.
This is all about learning from your mistakes, adapting.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just creating something, right? It's about building that mindset, approaching problems in a way that you could apply outside the classroom. But I'm curious, how does all this play out in terms of, the actual roles of teachers and students? How does that shift?
It's a big shift. Think about a traditional classroom, right? The teacher's at the front, delivering information, and the students are just absorbing it.
Yeah, the classic sage on the stage.
Exactly. But design thinking flips that.
So the teacher becomes more of a
A facilitator, a guide.
Yeah.
Sparking curiosity, providing structure, supporting students as they navigate the whole process.
And the students, they become more like.
Active participants. They're asking questions, doing research, brainstorming, really owning their learning.
That sounds pretty empowering, actually. But I'm curious, does this require a ton of fancy equipment or technology? I'm picturing 3D printers and robotics labs and all that.
Oh, that's a common misconception. Portnoy emphasizes that design thinking can happen with simple tools. Remember that project in the book where the kids designed a robot wedding? Oh, yeah, that was so creative.
Well, they weren't using, super advanced robots. It was the design process itself that made it innovative, not the technology.
So it's about how you use the tools, not just having the latest and greatest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot more accessible, right?
Yeah.
For classrooms that might not have a lot of resources.
Definitely. Okay, so let's go back to the roles for a second. Portnoy talks about this hearts model. What's
Yeah.
that all about?
It's a framework for really understanding the individual learner. It stands for home life, educational experiences, activities, reasons for learning, transformative life experiences, and special attributes.
Okay, that's quite a list. How does a teacher use that in a design thinking classroom?
It's all about gathering information, personalizing the learning experience.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a student who's struggling with math. You look at their home life, and maybe you learn they're taking care of their siblings after school, no quiet place to study.
So you're understanding the context, all the factors that might be affecting their learning.
Right. And then you look at their reasons for learning. Maybe you discover they're passionate about music, so you try to incorporate music into their math lessons, make it more engaging, relevant to their interests.
That's fascinating. So it's not assuming all students learn the same way, it's meeting them where they are.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
But how does this work on a larger scale? Can a whole school adopt a design thinking approach?
That's a great question. I mean, can it really go beyond individual students?
It can. Portnoy gives examples of how it impacts the entire school culture. Like, one school was struggling with their transition to a standards-based grading system.
Oh, I can imagine. That's a big shift from traditional grades.
Huge. Parents and teachers were anxious. So they formed a team, teachers, parents, administrators, and they used design thinking to understand everyone's concerns, brainstorm solutions.
So those same 5 elements, empathize, research, ideate, prototype, reflect, but applied to the whole school.
Exactly. And they developed a new grading system that addressed everyone's needs, made the transition smoother.
That's impressive. Design thinking isn't just for individual projects. It can be a tool for systemic change. What about examples beyond the classroom? What does that look like?
Well, there's this one school that transformed their lobby, which was pretty drab, into this vibrant, living timeline mural.
Oh, that's cool.
It showcased student learning
Yeah.
across all disciplines, really fostered a sense of community.
It's taking design thinking beyond academic subjects, applying it to the whole environment. Makes me think it could be applied to, I don't know, community spaces, workplaces, even our own homes.
Absolutely. It's a versatile approach. Portnoy also highlights a program, Welding Wednesdays, she calls it, where
Hmm.
students got to apply design thinking to a hands-on skill.
Welding Wednesdays.
Yeah. It was designed to engage students who maybe weren't thriving in a traditional setting,
I see. So students who learn best by doing.
right? They learn welding techniques, but also use design thinking to create their own projects, sculptures, tools, you name it.
So it combines those technical skills with creativity, problem solving. That's great.
But all this talk about design thinking and these innovative projects, it makes me wonder, do you need a certain kind of personality to be a design thinking teacher? Do you have to be like super creative and outgoing?
It's a good question, and it's really at the heart of design thinking, It's not about a personality type.
Oh.
It's a mindset, a way of approaching things. Anyone can develop it.
So it's not about being like born a design thinker.
Right. It's about those skills, those habits of mind. You can cultivate those.
I like that. And Portnoy mentions there's a story in the book about educators who discovered their own passions through design thinking.
Yeah, a DJ, rock climber, competitive baker, all sorts.
Wow. So it's not just for the students. It can help teachers, too, tap into their own passions, get excited about teaching again.
Definitely. And this goes back to the core of the book, right? Why should we care about this? Why design thinking in education?
Right. Why is it so important?
Well, we're preparing students for a world that's constantly changing, right? Who knows what jobs will exist in 10 years, let alone what knowledge they'll need.
It's kind of scary when you think about it like that.
It is. But that's where design thinking is so powerful. It's not about teaching a set of facts. It's giving them the tools, the mindset to adapt, to be creative, to solve problems.
To be lifelong learners.
Exactly. Those are the skills that'll serve them no matter what the future holds.
It's giving them the toolkit, not the finished product.
I like that. And this has been a great deep dive. Really insightful stuff.
Yeah, I'm feeling inspired. What about you? What's the most important takeaway from Design to Learn for you?
For me, it's that reminder that education, it can be so much more than just, absorbing information.
Yeah.
It's about empowering those students, right? Connecting their passions to real problems, helping them develop those skills to make a difference in the world.
It's a pretty powerful vision. So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. Think about your own life, your work, your community. What's a problem you're facing?
Good question. What if you approached it using design thinking? Just something to think about. And if you're looking for more inspiration, definitely check out Lindsay Portnoy's book, Design to Learn. It's full of great examples, practical insights.
Yeah, it's a good read for anyone, really.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Hope it sparked some new ideas. We'll see you next time.